with about almost about 15 years of experience now, 15 plus.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through various roles in HR. So started my career with recruitments and I was working with Wipro then.
Mm-hmm.
And then moved on to do employee management.
Okay.
And then I joined a firm called Execute HR, which was into HR management, in a way HR outsourcing. And we
Mm-hmm.
would do anything in the HR field from, running RPOs to managing your HR technology, to managing your surveys, to
Mm-hmm.
designing, let us say for a very well-known um online shopping
Mm-hmm.
organization, we designed their entire graduate training and management training program.
Okay.
And I was a part of the team that would do the entire consulting and solution building.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I thought, okay, and I'd had my child then, and
Mm-hmm.
I took a little break and I said, I'd like to do a little consulting, take it a little easy,
Mm-hmm.
not have fixed timings. So I got into consulting, and most of my consulting projects were with startups where I helped them put together their HR function.
Okay.
Just put it together, and then to the extent that I would take it to the succession planning level
Mm-hmm.
and then hand it over to their HR resource to manage and step out and then only be engaged on a need basis.
Mm-hmm.
Now that my things were settled, my son has kind of grown up. He's about 8 years now and he's, busy with school, etc. I thought it's now time to get back to the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
And now I work with a company called Tablespace Solutions.
Okay.
We're into providing enterprise level workplace solutions, co-working solutions kind
Mm-hmm.
of things. And I head HR there. I'm a director HR there.
All right. So it's great to know about your journey and everything as such. Okay. And now we would like to understand more about your insights about the topics that you have chosen and what would you like to share?
Okay. So now that we're talking about employee engagement, my first thing, very, very unfortunate, but a lot of employee engagement has been about events, you know. That's very unfortunate because engagement is not about organizing an event.
Mm-hmm.
It is about day-to-day experience. And that is something that we need to understand. That the kind of experience I give to my employee every day is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm engaging him in. Organizing one reward and recognition program in 6 months is not employee experience.
Mm-hmm.
That is just a small part of it. So I'll start with that. That employee engagement is about employee experience. And that experience is a lot of things put together. It'll be, if I were to put that in very small buckets, I'll say the first bucket is meaningful work. The second bucket is a supporting management. The third one would be, I would say, is a positive work environment. And that is where culture comes. I'm going to kind of mix design thinking and culture
Please do.
here. I
That
may
was
not,
interesting to hear.
yeah. So culture is positive work environment,
Mm-hmm.
growth opportunity. If I am in an organization and I know what are the kind of opportunities open for me, I'll be engaged with those opportunities. And the biggest and maybe one thing that we kind of end up not thinking much about, ignoring, is the trust factor.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is also very, it's a very mathematical factor if you look at it. Trust for me or for anybody is the kind of experience I have with you by the number of times I have that experience with you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say if I come to you with a problem and you're able to resolve it and you do it a number of times, is how my trust level or my trust index increases with you.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm able to take care of these 5 buckets for any employee, and these also form what we call the organization culture, I'm able to manage his experience in my organization. Now I'll come to design thinking here. So, a lot of us have been thinking of design thinking as a way where applications or websites were created.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to, kind of put it in simple English, design thinking is basically a method of putting creative solutions to your problems. In that creative solution, for us in this age today, thankfully we have technology.
Mm-hmm.
So we're able to use that. So if I, very quick design thinking applications would be feedback tools, fitness apps, various employee technology tools where you're engaging them day on day on maybe how putting their performance over there, or maybe just there are tools like Basecamp, etc., which people use to tell about what they've done through the day, or chatbots, many things, many tools which people use in design thinking. I'll again pick up those buckets and go one by one. If I were to pick up something like meaningful work, for any employee, meaningful work would be where his performance is managed and not appraised. It's not like once in 6 months or once in a year, I get to know how I performed, and that becomes my destiny. Performance management is about telling me at a very small frequency of how I've been doing, and setting milestones for me to say, okay, if you do this, you'll be able to perform much better. In that I'm also told about my training needs. I'm also told about my improvement areas, and I'm told about my strengths, which I can use to perform better, do more meaningful work. So something like success factors, which is a perfect example of a well-designed thinking applied tool, which is used to manage performance, is what I would say is something that through design thinking, you are engaging with the employee. Coming to the next bucket where we're saying that, okay, let's say supportive management. How would the management support? It is one, by helping you perform better, giving you feedback. And the other is by communication. Traditionally, for long, any organization has suffered where communication has been a problem. There have either been communication gaps, or the line of communication was too long. I could speak to my manager would then speak to the head of the department, and then the head of the department would speak to whoever. In this day-to-day where you have, again, you have tools like, let's say, Microsoft Teams, Basecamps, various other tools where the communication is open and it is very inclusive. So let's say I use a simple tool like Microsoft Teams. At once I can have my entire team there and we can have an open discussion about anything, especially in this time like where, we were suffering from a pandemic and everyone was working out of home. I think we've more and more used these tools to engage with people. And thanks to these tools, we've been able to engage. If we were to be left to emails, it would have been very difficult. It is so easy to see a person on Teams and tell him, this is how I want things. This is how you may want to do your next project.
Right.
Versus writing an email. So that's one place where maybe design thinking as an application, as a method has helped us in engaging with employees. I'll come to positive work environment. I think positive work environment has a lot to do with how are we letting people learn and how are we letting people be themselves in the organization and not, nitpicking each one of them for their weaknesses. Just kind of acknowledging them for who they are. And that can be done by letting them learn at their own pace and not, forceful learning that, traditionally how a lot of us have been in various organizations where you joined, there was a learning path curved for you where we would say you need to go through a training on, let's say, on processes, a training on how you need to behave in that role, and a training on various tools that you would use to do that role. Now, we have said that these are certain trainings that you need to go through, but we leave it to the employee to say you design your training path for yourself. Because that is an availability we have now as of today, thanks to various tools. And those tools, like I said, come through design thinking. They creatively thought about certain problems that we all suffer, and they came out with a solution. So any kind of learning mechanism that can be brought into the organization, which is open, very simply like chatbots, those are open anytime. And then you leave it to the employee to design it for himself. and therefore a very, very strong impact on his engagement with the organization. Um, I'll link that to growth opportunities. So I don't know if you've ever heard of something called 1 hour learning. It's kind of a bite-sized learning app. You download it on your mobile phone, and in that 1 hour that you possibly are traveling in the metro or in the bus or in the shuttle, you can finish one training program.
Okay.
So the entire learning, learning progress or process for any employee can be set on his phone, and he can do it whenever he wants to do, because it is only 1 hour. It is not 8 hours of sitting at one place. I am not negating the fact that certain trainings can only be done together as a team and at one place. But there are certain things where you just want to, impart certain knowledge and let the person learn at his own pace and take his own, form his own perspectives. That can be really done clearly, easily through these bite-sized learning apps. I'll come to, again, all this I'll link to trust. Any kind of, bite-sized training apps or survey apps give you quick pulse of the organization. Like how Gallup, etc., had those number of questions that any employee had to answer to eventually for us to understand how well are we engaged in as an organization. Just imagine if it's a bite-sized pulse survey. It's extremely pulse. Only 5 questions, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Anything that you do on a daily basis can easily be tracked. And therefore your trust factor can be managed. I'm not saying increased, but if you know where you're not able to gain the trust of an employee, you can work on that factor, and therefore an increase. If I were to give you, a simple example, I know of organizations which did hackathons just to collect ideas and then designed a new appraisal program. So they did hackathons with the employees, just a 2-hour session where they said, okay, let's come up with ideas for how do we design our new appraisal mechanism. And within those 2 hours, they got really good ideas, and whatever was finally designed was what the employees wanted and not what the management was forcing down on them. And therefore their engagement was way higher. I'm going to link that to culture now. If I, since we kind of bucketed it, if I were to put, kind of take all these buckets together, what do these really form? These are values of any organization. We can word them in whichever way we want to. We can use different words, but these are, the core of any organization's values if you look at it. Being able to provide a growth path, being meaningful at work, being extremely open and trusting each other. And therefore, if you are able to manage these buckets, or your organization's culture is about these buckets, your engagement level is going to be extremely high. Again, coming back to how you're engaging, you're looking at experiences. So something like, when I join, am I able to manage the onboarding of an employee at an early stage and give him an experience during his onboarding itself, which helps him settle down, and those critical 90 days of any employee's life cycle in the organization are very high on experiences and not on information brought down top to bottom. Those are, he learns through his experiences. The likelihood, the likeness of that employee being with you is way higher and longer. Because he's engaged from day one. So like onboarding could be one. Setting his goals, so providing meaningful work. If you're able to set goals clearly, engage with the employee clearly in those first few days and give him the experience where, you're not saying that, it's not like, the KRAs are there. They come to you over an email, understand your KRAs. If you have a problem, reach out to me. Instead, if somebody is sitting with him, identifying that, okay, look, this is your role, and when we hired you, we understood that these are your strengths. If you agree, then these are certain things that you can do very fast yourself. However, to be able to perform the best in this role, these are certain areas where you possibly need to see what your team is doing and then do accordingly. So you're setting the goal and the path very clearly.
Right. Can I
And that is
pause for a minute? I think I have someone at the door. Sure, thanks.
sure. Days at home, working from home.
Working from home, and then maid just arrived, so she was the one calling me up.
Okay. All right. I think that's one thing that we've all kind of accepted, that when you're at home and working from home, there'll be children all around, there'll be people working all around. You need to accept it, no matter what. And that's very nice, actually. So we were on goals. If you were to set goals early on in the employee's life cycle, you're likely to engage him much better and stronger. I'll give you an example, and I worked very closely with this tech-based organization, actually telecom-based organization that's spread across India, Ericsson.
Okay.
They have had a very strong onboarding mechanism. One is that they kind of completely digitized it. All form filling, etc., happens even before the employee joins. So on day one, he's not spending time in those number of forms. He's spending time knowing his organization. And he's actually done understanding the organization in half the day. The other half of the day is spent in helping him set his goals for the coming 6 months. You know, the experience itself is very, very clear, very open, and very forward-looking. It's not like I have to just keep signing on a number of documents and that's about it. I'm welcomed in a very simple, very good manner. In fact, I would say I get to see the part of my organization that I'm actually eager to see. Right. So yeah, setting goals is one. And now coming to, we were speaking of, when I started speaking to you, I spoke that, you know, doing an R&R in 6 months is not engagement. It is just one part of what we do as the engagement. Acknowledgement has to be a day-to-day basis, and acknowledgement is a part of my culture. How do I then imbibe that into what I do on a daily basis is what I need to see. So coming to, you know, kind of linking that to design thinking, there are many tools. Simply like a base camp helps me acknowledge any individual's performance on an hourly basis also. So, you know, let's say I get a feedback if I have Basecamp on my organization, or as of that matter, Microsoft Teams. If I get feedback for a particular client from a client for a particular employee, I can quickly let that information flow in the organization as just a recognition to the kind of work that he did, to the kind of experience he gave to my client. Because what he's giving to the client is what I'd like to give back to him. So acknowledging day on day should be a part of the culture, and therefore that impacts engagement much more. Any kind of recognition otherwise on periodic basis, like, you know, giving certificates or maybe help, let's say somebody spent years in your organization, you're kind of acknowledging that fact in a bigger forum, and you're doing it, let's say in 6 months, awesome, should do that. But should not negate the fact that an acknowledgement has to be more frequent. And the day you see something, acknowledge it that day and not wait for 6 months. You may want to reward it later, but acknowledge today. Recognition should be as of today. So yeah, that. And the last I would say, and I'll connect that to trust, is empower your employees. I was working with this startup, they're into digital marketing, and we kind of worked on something called intrapreneurship, where they said that, you know, anybody who's into our organization should be empowered enough to take decisions. And how do you do that? You do that by creating small entrepreneurs within the organization. So an intrapreneur in your organization.
Okay.
And that is through empowerment, giving them complete ownership and accountability, and therefore not just, you know, trusting them, but getting trust back from them also to say my organization is helping me be a stronger professional.
Mhm.
So if you just kind of link the two, that when you empower people, you gain their trust, and all of that is coming through culture. See, culture will always be the backbone of any organization.
Mhm.
Everything else revolves around that. So when I kind of tried to bucket these things, I kind of bucketed what forms culture, and I said, okay, now let's connect it to design thinking and how tools of design thinking have helped us in driving culture and therefore engagement.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I guess that's from me today. Any
Okay.
questions that you have?
All right. So let's say that somebody is looking forward to start their journey into the HR domain. Okay. So what would you like to suggest them specifically onto these two topics? Okay. That this could be a learning for them.
Culture.
Yeah. Culture and design thinking both.
So my first, and something that I've kind of lived by, and anybody who's worked with me or has come in my team, first thing I tell them, understand what is your organization all about.
Mhm.
HR is about understanding the business goals
Mhm.
and then converting that into one, employee goals, and helping then those employees achieve those goals.
Mhm.
It is not really about giving just something, managing employees only. It is about balancing the both.
Mhm.
So my thing to anybody who would want to understand culture and design thinking would be to understand your organization and its vision first,
Mhm.
and then you'll be able to understand what is the value with which your organization is there,
Mhm.
and then you'll be able to create an employer value proposition for people who are coming on board.
Mhm.
So understand the values and the vision very clearly. Culture is all around that.
Okay. All right. And what design thinking?
Um, Design thinking, like I said earlier, also it is not about technology. It
Mhm.
is about a practice of creatively resolving any problem,
Mhm.
and that creative resolution will come through first acknowledging the problem and
Mhm.
then deep diving into what could have caused that problem. That's the first step, and that is what is the first step of any design thinking courses, etc., that we do.
Mhm.
That deep dive into the problem first, and
Mhm.
once you've deep dived into the problem, then brainstorm.
Mhm.
Don't limit the problem to yourself. Take the problem out.
Mhm.
Take people's advices, or as of that matter, their observations about the problem, or what they think could be a potential solution.
Mhm.
But don't limit it. Take as many ideas as you can, and then see what are the first few ideas that are one, right for your organization, have longevity,
Mhm.
and will give you solutions as of today, maybe smaller, the impact today may be 20%, but the 80% impact you'll see over the period of time. So apply that rule, and I guess that's the rule by which any design thinking, any product that comes through design thinking is based on, that it has to have a long-term impact. So all, again, like I said, design thinking is about creatively resolving a problem in the long term.
Mhm.
So think of it in that manner.
All right. Great. It was great to hear all your experiences, and you've given such a subtle examples, okay, which can make anyone understand about this overall concept in such an easy way. Thanks for all your time and everything. Okay. And any suggestions, any feedback that you happen to have for HR Success Talk as of now?
No, in fact, I've been following your group quite a lot, and I think it's nice to see, it's non-competitive group that is just helping each other whenever there's a need and sharing very good knowledge on that platform.
All right. Thanks for your kind words and everything. Thanks for your
Thank
time
you.
on Sunday afternoon and enjoy your day.
All right. Bye.
Bye.